Hello and welcome back to Crypto Saving Experts, where we talk about the latest cryptocurrency news and take a look at the markets so that we'll know exactly what is happening. My name is Jess. We do these live streams every single weekday talking about what is going on in the market. So I hope everybody had a lovely weekend and a happy Easter if you do celebrate it. Let's take a look at the price of Bitcoin and see what's happened over the weekend. I would like to say it's done exactly as we predicted on Friday's live stream, where we didn't really expect to see too much movement. So taking a quick look at the price of Bitcoin, we are currently at $28,360, staying within that price range that we did cover on Friday's stream. We will be doing a little bit more Bitcoin analysis at the end of today's video, so let's save the rest of that for the end of today's stream. Let's take a look quickly at the prices. So Bitcoin sat at $28,312, Ethereum sat at $1,857, both up 1% in the last 24 hours. A nice little rise to start the week off feeling a little bit positive. Let's take a look at what's going on in the cryptocurrency news though, because there is a lot going on and we have a huge amount of news. The writers have been working hard at Crypto Saving Expert over the Easter bank holiday to get some good news out to you all. So let's get over to that. Let me check the stream is all running perfectly on my end. It all looks like it is okay. Let's start off talking about the NFT market. Now we have a huge amount of news about NFTs in today's stream. We usually don't discuss NFTs too much. I'm not a big NFT fan personally. I do have one NFT. I minted an NFT for the first time last week. Pretty exciting stuff. It felt very exciting, but now I'm just sat with this NFT and I don't really know what to do with it. And I like to dollar cost average in and I like to dollar cost average out. So now that I've minted one NFT, I'm just like, I can't dollar cost average out of this position. It's all or nothing. So that is why I'm unsure on the NFT investment opportunities I see. But let's take a look at the news on the NFTs anyway. So we have here, first of all, Facebook and Instagram to start deleting NFT data wallet addresses from April the 11th. So as part of plans to wind down support for digital collectibles, Facebook and Instagram have announced that they will start deleting NFT data from their systems, including wallet addresses, beginning April the 11th, so tomorrow. Now, we have expected this for a while. They have announced, we have a quote here from a blog post. We have announced that we will be winding down our support for digital collectibles. These changes will begin taking effect starting April the 11th, and this will not affect the content of your third-party digital wallet. So we can see here that they are removing these, and now your NFTs, I have read somewhere within this article, I did give this a scan before we got on, that your NFT will just look like a normal picture now, essentially, on your profile. We can see here that the Meta's interest in NFTs was short-lived, lasting less than a year. So testing of NFTs began in May and will select Instagram creators and some Facebook users in June 2022. So NFT support was then expanded to creators in 100 countries by July. But with the global financial situation kick-started by the COVID-19 pandemic and accelerated by the war in Ukraine, Meta lay off thousands of employees and shelve ambitions of new industries such as the metaverse and NFTs. So we've seen a lot of the big companies in the last couple of months lay off a huge number of staff. And when that happens, they need to realign their goals. And we've seen Meta and Mark Zuckerberg say that this is the year of efficiency. They're not going to have all of these extra cogs trying to turn at once. Instead, they've got to slim down the amount of employees they have. So they need to slim down their goals and understand what they are actually trying to work towards, rather than having thousands of people all working in different directions, and try and come together and work on one goal as a unit. So that's what Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg's trying to do with Meta. We could take a look here. We also have some news about OpenSea here. So OpenSea shareholders are selling their stocks despite restrictions. So according to The Block, OpenSea doesn't allow sales of its stock by employees or investors without approval from the board in the same way as other blue chip startups. Yet, its stock may still be found at a significant discount in a remote area of the startup investment market. As The Block noticed in March, many blue chip companies in the cryptocurrency field are also undervalued in their shares. So what we have here, if these stocks are sold through SPVs, unique legal companies created solely to assist secondary market transactions, and brokerage platforms are getting around prohibitions on stock trading. So the privately held NFT marketplace OpenSea raised $300 million in early 2022 with a last valuation of $13.3 billion. Due to this fact, OpenSea avoided raising money through a bear market, where the valuation of some of these blue chip startups dropped significantly due to their need for money. So we see very frequently when the price of Bitcoin is down, cryptocurrency related companies have lower valuations. When the price of Bitcoin is up and cryptocurrencies are high, then the cryptocurrency based companies have higher valuations as well. So during a bear market, the valuation of the startups drops significantly because they need more money. So based on the data collected by ApeView, OpenSea shares were being traded at a 51% discount on a secondary market platform for startup shares. Now that is a huge discount, and this is what we see frequently during bear markets. What happens here is cryptocurrency companies have less assets, their value of their investments has dropped, and they are maybe more likely to accept investment. Therefore, investors can offer them a lower amount of money for a higher percentage of their company. So that is what we see here. But let's take a look at the next article here. We have another article about NFTs, and then we are moving on to some Binance struggles. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about this one first. So over 75% of crypto holders have NFTs in their portfolios, and this is a really shockingly high number. I thought I was not the only person in the camp that's against NFTs. I thought this was I know a lot of people are interested in NFTs, but there is also the counter arguments that I stand very close by. And I thought there was more people on the against NFT team, but clearly not. I'm not against NFTs, I would like to say. I just don't see value in the majority of NFTs. And I also, as I said at the start of today's stream, don't like how it's very difficult to dollar cost average out unless you buy a huge number of the NFTs to begin with. So that is what we're looking at there, very high percentage. But let's move on to the next piece of news here. We are moving on to discuss what's happening with the de-dollarization movement. So what we are seeing here is Binance.us is struggling to secure a banking partner after Silvergate and Signature Bank collapsed. So in the start of March, we saw 3 major cryptocurrency-friendly banks in the US shut down. And this has had a massive effect globally. And what we are seeing here is that these banks are no longer allowed to work with cryptocurrency companies. So we can see here, let's see where we got up to. According to Wall Street Journal report, Binance.us is struggling to find a new banking partner after the collapse of Signature Bank and Silvergate Capital left it without a traditional financial institution to handle its users' USD deposits. So we can see here they are transitioning to new banking and payment service providers, but they're just finding that process slightly more difficult than planned. So we can see here that the American arm of the world's largest exchange was using both banks to process its fiat transactions, but their collapse has resulted in Binance.us innovating by using at least one middleman to store funds on its behalf. However, having a middleman is slowing down transactions at the exchange. So we can see here a Binance spokesperson has told the Wall Street Journal that we work with multiple US-based banking and payment providers and continue to onboard new partners while upgrading our internal systems to create a more stable fiat platform and offer additional services. So they've reportedly tried to form banking relationships with several other banks, but none of these have yet been successful. Now, obviously, Binance are going to give up on this. They're going to continue to fight until they find one. This isn't too much of a concern, but we are just still seeing the repercussions of these banks that collapsed earlier in March. And I imagine we are going to still see these repercussions for a longer period of time. This isn't the end of this. We've seen many of these banks have been purchased, and they've stopped working with cryptocurrency companies altogether, just making it slightly more difficult for cryptocurrency companies to succeed. But we'll take a look at the next article here. We have the French president urges Europe to break away from the US dependability. So we can see here that he has said that he has become the latest world leader to allude to a potential reduction in the reliance on US goods and services and the US dollar. So this is what is being called de-dollarization. The French president, who has just completed a 3-day state visit to China, stated Europe faces a scenario of being hurtled into the rising tensions between the US and Taiwan. And he said, the paradox would be that, overcome with panic, we believe we are just America's followers. The question Europeans need to answer is it in our own interest to accelerate a crisis on Taiwan? No. The worst thing would be to think that we Europeans must become followers on this topic and take our cue from the US agenda and a Chinese overreaction. So in his comments, the president refers to the rising tensions between China, the US and Taiwan as China deploys military drills off the coast of Taiwan. So what we are seeing here is a lot of questions being asked. We did discuss last week on the live stream that the Malaysia's Prime Minister comments regarding reducing dependence on the US dollar and suggesting Asia form a monetary fund. And we are seeing a lot of different movements all around the world, different agreements being made between many different jurisdictions, moving away from the US dollar right now. So let's talk about how this affects the price of Bitcoin. Since we are crypto saving experts, the number one cryptocurrency news show. So what we are seeing here is the dependability on the US dollar is looking like it could continue to decrease. Normally, at first, we have an inverse correlation with the US dollar. So when the US dollar is going down, Bitcoin will tend to go up, and when the US dollar is going up, Bitcoin will tend to go down. In fact, let's take a look at the DXY very, very quickly here to see what's going on with the value of the dollar. So DXY measures the US dollar against a basket of 6 other currencies. This is loading very, very slowly. I hope the stream is not as slow as this page is loading. So when the DXY goes up, we usually have inverse correlation. So let's check out the DXY here and see what, maybe it's just my entire computer is very slow this morning. We can see here on the daily chart, the DXY has been decreasing massively. Since back in September 2022, we did have a small relief rally on between the 1st of February and the start of March, but it's been in a downtrend for a long period of time now. And when that happens, as I said, the price of Bitcoin usually performs pretty well. But if the dollar were to lose its status of being the world reserve currency, we could expect the whole economy in the US to have a big dump. And if that were to take place, Bitcoin does still have a correlation to traditional stocks. So we could see the price of Bitcoin move to the downside as well. And when Bitcoin does that, it means that altcoins can do that too. However, in the long term, when we see that we can't trust and we can't rely on these fiat currencies, people look for other assets, alternative assets like gold and like Bitcoin. So although in the medium term we may see some sort of dump for the price of Bitcoin, in the long term, and obviously nothing is financial advice, I'm still feeling incredibly bullish on Bitcoin, and I don't think anything could happen that would have changed my opinion on that. Let's take a look at where we are up to. We can see here actually this is a really interesting article because there's a lot of people that are against cryptocurrency and they believe that it's just used for criminals to launder their money, to make anonymous transactions. But what we have actually seen here and has been reported by crypto saving experts is that traditional finance and not decentralized finance is preferred for criminals. So the US Department of the Treasury issued an assessment expressing concerns that DeFi could endanger national security. And the research offered 6 recommendations that it believes will make it more difficult for criminals to take advantage of DeFi. According to the report, the US government and DeFi service providers were encouraged to seek innovations to mitigate the illicit finance risks of DeFi services. Now, according to the assessment, ransomware hackers, criminals, and hackers from the DPRK have all been using DeFi services to transfer and launder their money illegally. But we can see here the illicit actors have taken advantage of weaknesses in the DeFi services underlying technology and US and international AML and CFT regulatory supervisory and enforcement regimes. So according to the US Treasury analysis, DeFi services are not complying with current AML and CFT regulations. But the concluding point that the US Department of Treasury found is that most criminals carry out their illicit business using fiat money. And that is the main point of this article here, is that a lot of people demonize cryptocurrencies because of how criminals can take advantage of the technology, and nothing's perfect. That's what we need to point out here. Nothing is perfect. Cash is something that these criminals can use just as easily to launder their money. And what we can see in this report from the US Department of Treasury is that criminals carry out their illicit business using fiat primarily. So that's what we're seeing there. So we need to demonize cryptocurrency a lot less and spread this information around. Let's take a look at this next article here. We have South Korean prosecutors asked Binance to block $69 million in Bitcoin linked to Do Kwon. So let's make sure that we are all sorted. Today we have a few articles on some bug exploits, not just one or two. We do have quite a few here. So first of all, we are looking to see if Binance can block these tokens or cryptocurrencies. Let's see what it is. He has amassed from the collapsed Terra project into Bitcoin and spread them across crypto exchanges. So this is what is being accused of Do Kwon. South Korean prosecutors have contacted Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, asking the firm to block any crypto transactions tied to Terraform Labs' disgraced founder and CEO, Do Kwon. So we can see here that the prosecutors disclosed that Kwon and 9 other executives at Terra earned roughly 414 billion won, which is $314 million, from the failed Terra Luna project. And out of the $314 million, about $69 million belongs to Kwon, while co-founder Daniel Shin amasses $41 million. And the remainder is for current and former executives. So what's going on here is they are now saying that Do Kwon is making some transactions here, and they want those transactions to be blocked. And this is a benefit that we can get from centralized exchanges, is that we can stop those transactions from continuing forwards and stop him from accessing those funds until this lawsuit comes to some sort of understanding and end. We can see here Kwon faces roughly 5 years in prison for falsifying documents at the Podgorica airport in Montenegro, where he was arrested, which we reported back in March. But also he has other charges all across the world. So we'll see how this plays out in the next couple of weeks. Let's move on to the next article here and see what is happening. Let me have a sip of my coffee before we continue today's stream. I hope everybody had a lovely weekend. It was a very sunny one here in the UK, and it was a bank holiday, so it was a brilliant time. Let's take a look. Before we do move on to the next piece of news here, please don't forget to like and subscribe and press the bell notification button so that you don't miss the latest cryptocurrency news. We do these live streams every single weekday at around 11 or 12 a.m. BST time, so make sure to check us out as well every single day if you don't already. And make sure to go over to our Twitter at CryptoSavingExp without the ERT on the end, to follow us over on there, and on all social media platforms. It's other like Instagram and TikTok. It's Crypto Saving Expert, where you can follow us and stay up to date with the latest cryptocurrency news. One last thing I should remind you about is to go to cryptosavingexpert.com, go to this big blue button, create an account completely for free, and you can gain access to cryptocurrency courses to learn about cryptocurrency. Very, very important, very, very useful, and completely for free. So you've got nothing to lose, essentially. Let's take a look at this next article here. We have SushiSwap recovers hundreds of ETH after the $3.3 million smart contract bug exploit. So SushiSwap was subject to a hack, which saw $3.3 million in ETH stolen, and still some of the funds have since been recovered through white hat security. So what we can see here is from the popular decentralized exchange SushiSwap, hackers exploited a bug on the smart contract on Sunday, and now as head developer confirmed, the affected contract, Router Processor 2, had a transaction approval related bug that hackers exploited to drain the funds. And Gray also stated in a separate tweet that the bulk of the exploited funds came from a single user. Blockchain security platform PeckShield identified the user as SIFU, a popular member of crypto Twitter. So 300 Ethereum has been recovered shortly after the exploit. The first hacker returned about 90 ETH of 100 stolen. In comparison, BlockSec rescued 100 ETH, which was noted by crypto visualization platform MetaSleuth. So what happens here is, usually when we see somebody take advantage of a bug in a cryptocurrency, in a smart contract or in any of the different types, what we see here is that they will usually return a percentage of the funds they have stolen and keep a small percentage as like a fee for uncovering what it could be exploited within the smart contract. Now, this is an alright way to go about this. A preferred way to go about this is just to notify the team so the team can sort it out. The second favoured way is that they take, for example, the 100 Ethereum and send back 90. And the least preferable way for a project is when they take the 100 ETH and they just stay and keep it and run away with it. So this is all right. It could be better. It could be a worse scenario. As long as SushiSwap managed to recover the majority of these funds, I'm sure SushiSwap will be absolutely fine. If we take a look at the token for SushiSwap, which is Sushi, let's get that right, we can see here that this has had a slight move to the downside. It's really not been affected that negatively from this. So it was on Sunday that this took place. Let's take a look at the daily close on Sunday. This was over back here. So it's only seen, in fact, Sunday wasn't even a negative day. It wasn't even that bad. It recovered so quickly. So it wasn't too bad for the project overall, as we've seen here. They've managed to receive a huge amount of those funds back, and if they continue to do so and accumulate as much of that back as possible, then the long-term repercussions for SushiSwap won't be that bad, because as with all smart contract bugs, as soon as it's identified, it can be fixed, and we can learn more and more the best practices for the coding languages we use within smart contracts, and we can continue to develop and grow the cryptocurrency space. Let's take a look now at the next article here and see what is going on. So we have cybersecurity experts find cryptocurrency stealing malware disguised as Google Drive extension. So what we just want to say here is just be careful when you're downloading extensions, when you're downloading anything offline. Just be incredibly careful as to what you are downloading. Make sure to do your due diligence and just do your research. We don't want your cryptocurrencies to be lost to these scammers. In the same token, kind of slightly. Last week we did report that Apple have actually had the white paper for Bitcoin within the operating system for Macs for the last 5 years. Now, I've had many discussions about this over on the weekend. Very interested in this information. Not sure what it means. Not sure if we'll ever understand why it's actually there, but it's a very interesting concept, and it's raised a lot of suspicions. I wonder if Apple are super fans of Bitcoin. Hopefully they are, and they announced that they have purchased a huge sum of it. That would nicely pump the price of Bitcoin, I imagine. But let's move on to this next penalty we've seen here. Robinhood to pay $10 million in multi-state penalties for technical failures. So the crypto stock trading firm will settle with 7 states for operational failures during its platform outages in 2020. So the platform has been fined over $10 million in penalties by US regulators over technical and operational failures that harmed investors. So let's see here. I mean, a lot of people aren't a fan of Robinhood because of what happened with the saga of a gaming shop. I can't remember what it was called. I should know what this was called. When there was a it's called GameStop. So that made it easier. My mispronunciation made me realize what I was talking about. This GameStop saga that was back in 2020 meant that investors could buy huge amounts of GameStop shares, and it was a group of Reddit investors that initially started this and started to push the price of GameStop up, and this meant that a lot of the big players within the financial world had to close their short positions on GameStop because it was almost 100% certain. All of these investors were 100% certain that GameStop was going to go to zero, so they all had incredibly long shorts on the GameStop stock, hoping to make some nice profits with basically no risk. But then a group of Reddit users realized that this was the case, and they wanted to get their own back. They wanted to get their own back at the big players within the game and show that small players can do this too. So they all heavily invested in GameStop, pushed the price up, mainly using Robinhood in this case. And it caused a lot of big players to have to close their short positions on GameStop or get liquidated, pushing the price of GameStop even higher, making a few people incredibly wealthy from their long positions, when that wasn't even their immediate intention. Their immediate intention was to get their own back to the big players in the financial world. But what happened here with Robinhood was all of these retail investors were purchasing their GameStop stocks on Robinhood, and then one day they just disabled the buttons to buy and sell the GameStop stock on Robinhood. So that gave it a very negative amount of press for a prolonged period of time, understandably. And we can see here that now let's take a look at this. Security regulators led the investigation from 7 states, and the probe was sparked by outages on Robinhood's stock trading platform in March 2020, which affected Main Street investors. So the multi-state settlement, the regulators disclosed that Robinhood had deficiencies in its review and approval process for options and margin trade accounts, and the company also had vulnerable monitoring and reporting tools. So this is on top of this. Now, Robinhood gets a lot of stick, specifically following that GameStop saga. So we can see here that they are continuing to, and now they've been hit with this huge fine. So I imagine that Robinhood will just pay this and move on and continue to operate as usual. I don't think this is the end for Robinhood, just something to keep an eye on. Let's move on to the next piece of cryptocurrency news here. We need to get on to cryptocurrency regulation because we've got a lot of news here, and then we've got some more day-to-day news, nothing specific, and then we've got some Bitcoin chart analysis as well today. So make sure to stay tuned and like and subscribe to today's stream if you are enjoying it, and if you're not, still like it anyway. I would appreciate it. And so we can see here, Gary Gensler is a bad faith regulator, according to Congressman Tom Emmer. So let's take a look at this. We all know Tom Emmer is pro-Bitcoin, pro-cryptocurrency. We always like to see his name in the news here, so we can see in an interview with Laura Shin, the host of the Unchained podcast, Congressman Emmer gave his thoughts on the SEC's recent action against crypto, and he called Gensler a Warren disciple, relating to Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has publicly made her stand against cryptocurrency, running for re-election on her anti-crypto army. So the congressman also stated that Gensler has been blindly spraying the crypto community whilst missing the true bad actors, and this is something that I would like to definitely agree with. We've seen FTX fall apart, we've seen Terra Luna fall apart, but we haven't seen enough investigation into these while it was still a thing. Only the repercussions can be accounted for, and now it seems that the SEC is trying to target any cryptocurrency player whatsoever. So we've seen this over and over again in the last couple of weeks within the main news. We can see here, Tom Emmer commented on the SEC's recent Wells notice to US exchange Coinbase, and he said the exchange has been working with the SEC via their open door, but said the door is enter at your own risk. So it's very shocking here that the SEC works closely with cryptocurrency companies to try and help them get regulated in the correct ways, and then it seems that the SEC just turn on any of them when they see fit. Anyway, even though they've tried to work closely with them to get regulated in the correct way. So in the podcast, Emma relates to the Wells notice served to Coinbase, and in a blog post by the exchange on its website, it stated, "We asked the SEC for reasonable crypto rules for Americans. We got legal threats instead." And this is precisely the type of behavior Emma was referring to in the podcast. A publicly listed company, Coinbase, was attempting to work hand in hand to ensure it was working within the guidelines, but instead the SEC slapped the exchange with a legal notice. We've seen this, we've discussed this quite a lot here on the channel because we are seeing the regulators attack many different cryptocurrency companies. Maybe a year and a half prior to Coinbase getting this Wells notice, they'd gone public, and when a company goes public, they have the regulators look very, very closely at everything to do with the company. So it's very shocking for a company like Coinbase to have gone public just over a year ago, and suddenly the SEC completely changed their stance and issue a Wells notice when they already did an audit only a year prior. So that's what we are seeing here, but we'll see how this plays out. We all know, obviously, Tom Emmer is incredibly pro-crypto and stands up for the cryptocurrency community a lot. But let's move on to the next article here. This is kind of a long stream today because we have a lot of news to unpack. We have Arkansas passes bill to protect Bitcoin miners. So they've reportedly passed a right to mine bill to see Bitcoin miners protected within the state. And this is really, really important. So this is a tweet from the Satoshi Action Fund. They stated the bill was poised to be signed by the governor. And this is a non-profit organization that seeks to aid the protection of Bitcoin mining and help lawmakers become up to date in the fight for Bitcoin. So what we can see here is the US is currently in limbo regarding the cryptocurrency regulation, with an apparent tug of war underway over which regulator has jurisdiction. Both the SEC and the CFTC have stepped up with their recent activity within the space, and the SEC issued Coinbase a Wells notice as part of a glut of charges issued last month. So what we can see here is, let's get to the main point of this article. They've tweeted that the anti-Bitcoin mining bill in Texas picks winners and losers. The bill is anti-competitive to its core and should be opposed by anyone who cares about free markets. So that is what we are seeing there. Positivity to see pro-Bitcoin bills being passed and moving forward to protect Bitcoin miners in the future. Let's take a look at the next article here. We have a lot about cryptocurrency regulation today. If you are enjoying today's stream, please don't forget to like and subscribe and press the bell notification button so you don't miss the latest cryptocurrency news. These live streams hurt my voice so much. I'm not this used to talking this much. Hold on. Ready to go again. Coffee's a little bit cold, but we can work with it. We have here UK regulators warn influencers on risks associated with promoting crypto schemes. So the FCA have teamed up with a former Love Island star. Very, very strange partnership there, I thought, to try and give what they've called finfluencers, which is apparently the term for financial influencers, guidance on what they can push and advertise and what they can't. I'm not sure why the UK regulators have teamed up specifically with this previous Love Island star, but they've chosen to do so. So maybe this will give more guidance and more clarity on regulations here in the UK. Let's move on to the next article here. We have the leader of Thailand's opposition party proposes $300 for each citizen. Now, what a way to get yourself voted for in the election. We can see here, let's get this right. They have said that this $300 will be in the form of cryptocurrency. So this is positive for the cryptocurrency industry, first of all. I mean, the leader wants to get chosen, obviously, and elected. So he's offering $300 out in cryptocurrency. Now, let's remove all of the political aspects from this, whether you like this party or not, and whether you think they should be voted for or not. In the scenario that they get voted for, and every citizen in Thailand receives $300, every single one of those people then need to understand how to interact with the blockchain. So that could massively push adoption of cryptocurrencies over in Thailand if this were to actually take place. Just some interesting concepts here. Very interesting way to get elected there. But let's move on to the next article and see what we have here. On to more general cryptocurrency news now. So let's get this right. Let's move this off. And let's talk about Fidelity International builds financial education campus in decentralized. So what we have here is the global asset management firm Fidelity International aims to educate people on real-world financial issues and hopes the metaverse will help them reach a wider audience, especially the younger generation. So what we can see here is the global firm Fidelity International creates a financial college in the decentralized metaverse to provide an engaging and interactive learning experience. So hopefully things come of this, and we want to educate people as much as possible. So any way of doing so is a brilliant thing to see. The metaverse is slightly scary, but I'm sure it could be used for some good, like what we are seeing with AI. AI is incredibly terrifying. We're seeing big players saying that they want to pause the movement on giant AI just for a second while we see how it could affect us in the future. However, with all of these new technologies, there is good and there is bad. So let's take a look at the next article here. We have crypto exchange DYDX to wind down services for Canadians. And that DXDY is derivatives in maths, isn't it? It gets me confused every single time. We can see here that DYDX's shutdown of Canadian services comes barely 3 weeks after crypto exchange OKX announced that it would be offboarding Canadian users. So we can see that this is due to regulatory current concerns, unfavourable regulatory climate in the country. So as we've said over and over again on this channel, we're seeing it frequently where regulations in different jurisdictions are moving cryptocurrency companies out of the specific jurisdictions. But on the back of that, we're also seeing in other jurisdictions the regulations lighten, and we're seeing places like Hong Kong aspiring to be cryptocurrency hotspots, and these exchanges are moving from less favorable jurisdictions to more favorable jurisdictions where the regulators can provide clarity and be a lot clearer on what they need from these companies. So let's move on to the next article here, more about the price predictions of the assets. These last two articles we have here, 63% of Ethereum traders believe ETH will exceed $5,000 by the end of 2023. And so let's take a look at this article. The price of Bitcoin, I've just shut down Crypto Saving Expert. How could I do such a thing? Let's take a look at this. On the Crypto Saving Expert website, if you go to the Markets tab, you can see the prices of all of your favorite cryptocurrencies. Ethereum is currently sat at 1,858. Now, in this article, we're seeing a price prediction of $5,000. So we're looking at a nice 2.3x within the next year. If this price prediction is correct, that would be a very positive move to the upside. So we can see here Ethereum Shanghai upgrade is less than a week away, and many Ethereum holders are optimistic about the digital asset's short-term and long-term value once withdrawals are activated on the mainnet. So what we're seeing here is that users will be able to unstake their Ethereum once this upgrade takes place. A lot of people have been scared about the amount of sell pressure that could come off the back of this, but in the long term, it's the final steps that we can see from the merge that took place later last year, and we are seeing that in the long term, this was a decision made for the Ethereum network to continue to improve. And short-term price fluctuations is not something that I'm too concerned about. I do still think the price of Ethereum is correlated pretty closely to the price of Bitcoin, and because of this, we are still waiting for the entire cryptocurrency market is waiting for that Bitcoin halving in April 2024, which is crazy that it's not even that far away. Just under a year away, I think it is at this point, around a year until the Bitcoin halving. And usually, we did pull this up on a live stream last week. If you take a look at the years prior to the Bitcoin halving, every single Bitcoin halving we've seen, we've had 3. The first 2, we saw a nice continuous uptrend in the year prior to the halving. And in the third one, we saw an uptrend, and then the COVID pandemic meant that we did see it fall to the downside. But overall, I would say that was an anomaly. And if that weren't to have taken place, we would have expected a nice move to the upside then as well. So the probability is, according to this data, we could see a nice move to the upside in the next year. And then when that Bitcoin halving does finally take place in April 2024, we could possibly, I'm expecting, obviously nothing is financial advice, see a nice big move to the upside. I was speaking to someone the other day and they were like, you speak about a Bitcoin bull run like it's an absolute certain. It made me think to myself, it is an absolute certain in my brain, but maybe we should phrase it a little bit better. It's a well-anticipated bull market. I am very, very, very convinced that we will see another bull market following the Bitcoin halving, because it's never ever priced in. But I should make sure everyone's aware that this is not financial advice, and there is a chance that there isn't one going to happen. But I don't like to be that negative here. So let's move on to this article here. We have Dogecoin close to erasing all gains of the Doge replacing the Twitter logo. So 2 days after April Fool's Day, on the 3rd of April, we saw the Twitter logo being replaced with the Doge symbol. And this lasted for 2 days. It saw a nice increase in the price of Doge following this. And then a couple of days later, he put it back to the bird. I mean, I'm glad he did. It was a pretty ugly logo to have. And now the price of Doge has seemed to have gone back down to those lower levels that it was at prior to the logo change. Let's now take a look though. We've finished on today's news. Let's take a look at the price of Bitcoin. So we've been looking at this for a while, and to be honest, we've stuck within these levels for a long period of time. We've been within the range of $27,700 and $28,600 for a long period of time. Now, we did say over on Thursday and Friday that we were expecting to stay within that range over the weekend, and that is exactly what we have done. If we do break down below this level of support, I'm personally looking at the $26,900 level, the $26,600 level, and if we break to the upside of that resistance, I want to see if we can get through that $28,800 level. because that's looking like a major level of resistance right now, and we are just waiting to see which one we can break first. But I think we've got a nice chance that we could see a nice move to the upside. Let's take a look at some indicators here quickly, taking a look at the RSI, and we'll take a look at the MACD as well. We can see here that on the 4-hour chart, the RSI is pretty neutral, if anything slightly overbought, and the MACD is pretty neutral, but looking like we have growing bullish momentum. So it's looking pretty good over there. In terms of the Bitcoin price on the shorter time frames, nothing is looking too terrible. The 1-hour chart is looking like we could be taking into, I mean, it looks like we're actually coming back out of this bearish momentum slightly on the 1-hour chart, but that is so neutral, and I don't think that counts. And I wouldn't count that if it was green either. I'm not just a Super Bowl. So we can see here on the daily chart, it looks like we have bearish momentum starting to weaken, and the RSI is looking pretty neutral, if not slightly overbought, but nothing to be concerned about in my opinion. Overall, the price of Bitcoin is looking pretty good here, staying within this range. I'm hoping we continue to stay in this range until we see a nice break to the upside. Usually what we do see is the price of Bitcoin has a nice increase and price rise to the upside, and then we see some sort of stagnation, some price consolidation, and this is where we could see some altcoins and Ethereum performing really well. Let's take a look at the Ethereum chart. I don't know where my lines are going to be on this. I think it's going to be all over the shop. Let's take a look at here. Let's get this. This is all a mess. We can see here we had a previous level of resistance at 1,823 and 1,837. We'd drawn these on. We did actually talk about this at the end of last week, and we were expecting we could see a retest of these levels, and that is what we've seen in the last couple of days here. So we've used those previous levels of resistance as a support, and I have to say that's making me feel super bullish about Ethereum and about some other altcoins as well. So I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on that over the next couple of days and see what we could see, and I'm hoping for some big gains this week. I've got a good feeling. But that is all for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe and press the bell notification button so you don't miss the latest cryptocurrency news, and I will see you back here tomorrow. I'll see you back here tomorrow.